decided to say this again. Are you ready? Hello, nice humans. I'm here with a Journal With Me video, and I can't begin without saying what feels like a hugely insufficient thank you for all of the love and messages of support that you guys sent after I published my last one. So thank you for that. It is really hard to know what to say, so I'm just going to talk about the craft because that's a lot easier. So I am going to show you a page in my traveler's notebook, but this is what I call my everyday travels journal. So basically I'm journaling in the style that I would do if I was creating a travel journal, but it's just traveling through everyday life. So you can see here that I have some fabrics. I'm showing you this one up close because it's got a really cute pattern on it, but the fabrics are all Liberty of London Tanner Lawns, which I'm using to create a quilt that I am just really loving. I'm participating in a quilt along, so we're doing it through, like, collectively, everybody's making their own, but we're sort of working on the same blocks, and it goes for a year, and by the end of it we'll have a completed quilt top. And it's really lovely because you can share your progress as you go and see how other people are doing it. And as ever, I love it when a bunch of different people are given a creative brief that is the same, but everything that each individual person creates from that brief is just radically different. That's something that I just really, really love. So you can see I've cut out some little fabric swatches because I wanted to give a bit of a feel for the kind of colours that I'm going with, and they were all scraps. A little bit earlier you saw me sort of rifling through my little scrap bin. Tanner Lawn is lovely fabric and it's not cheap, it's a beautiful quality, and I never throw it away unless it's just far too tiny to be used for anything. So the smaller bits I'll use for different projects, and sometimes I do things like this, like include little snippets of it in my journal. And so on the pattern, it's made up of these kind of diamond-shaped blocks, and I've decided to arrange them so that they're alternating between bright rainbows and pale rainbows. And the rainbows go from pink on the outside through to purple in the middle for all of them. And because they alternate, I think it will kind of help the thing feel quite bright, but hopefully reasonably light as well. So this is what the blocks are going to look like. And like I said, we're all of us who are participating are doing the same blocks, but they're just going to look different depending on our fabric choices and our colour preferences and all that kind of stuff. So yes, I've drawn a little sketch of each of them, and now I'm doing a very rough sketch of how they're going to be arranged. I really like including little things like this inside my journal. A lot of the time it'll be a sketch that I've done just because I needed to test something out before making it, and then it will be like a piece of ephemera from the process that gets included in my journal. But this time I'm actually drawing this specifically to put it in my journal, so it's more of like a memory keeping thing than anything else. But either way, my everyday travels journals have got lots of little sketches and drawings and things in them that I've just picked up from my desk or somewhere and just stuck in as part of a little passing thought that's gotten attached to some paper. And yeah, I love that. So this is what it's going to look like sort of roughly when it's all put together. So I'm going to include this in there. I'm just drawing it on a scrap of grid paper, which I thought would be extra handy for drawing something like a quilt out, because it just helps me get my lines evenly spaced without having to get a ruler out or anything, because it's not that kind of drawing. I just want it to look quite simple and sketchy. But yeah, the reason I chose rainbows is this quilt along is called the Liberty Love Around the World Sew Along. And I am looking to make my identity and my values and things a little bit more explicit in my art. And it's something that I kind of started doing when I was doing my master's. I was doing a project another quilting project actually about COVID and the effect that it's had on people and sort of the emotional experience of living through a pandemic. And doing craft for, I guess, as a process of active reflection and almost therapy is something that I feel particularly drawn to, and this is a project that's a bit like that. So my quilt is not just the Liberty Love Around the World, it's the Liberty Love is Love Around the World quilt, because it's full of rainbows and, you know, being part of the LGBTQIA plus acronym is a big part of who I am, as you will, again, know if you watch my last video. So, this is just... it's a quilt for fun. It's a quilt because I like it. It's a quilt to join in with, you know, a cool project. But I just thought that adding that extra layer of meaning to it is something that makes me happy. So I'm pleased to be doing that. I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to stick these pieces of fabric in. I sort of wanted them to be able to move around a little bit, but not obviously come away from the page. So I got a piece of... I just got some scrap paper, and it happened to be a chopped up glassine envelope, and I've cut some strips from it. And basically I cut the strips narrower than the swatches, and I'm stapling them on. You can see that I'm folding it up at the bottom, and that's not so I can staple the folded bit. It's so that I can actually fit the strip in between the jaws of the stapler to get the staple in the right place. So the folding is literally just so that it will be able to fit in there, so I can apply the staple where it needs to go. And on all of them except the top one, the staple is covered up by the piece of fabric that's on top of it. So you can only see one staple on each one. I'm not super fussy about neat finishes in this journal. I like things to look nice, but I'm not worried about them being perfect. This is a working journal. It's kind of like a living document, you know, and I want to be able to just stick stuff in there and record it and not be held back by the considerations of tiny details, you know, unless it's something that's a process or a detail that's going to bring me joy. I'm just like, do the thing that is expedient and keep going, because that's how I get my stories told. So I'm sticking these in with double-sided tape. So the fabric is stapled to the paper, and then the paper is getting taped to the book. Obviously, when you add fabric, and particularly when you overlap it, it will add bulk to a journal. I don't mind my journals being quite chunky, but I probably wouldn't have put this spread in the front, or the early pages of the book. This is going in, I think this is actually the last spread in this particular journal, or the second last spread. So I feel quite happy putting a chunky thing in here, because I know it's not going to hinder my journaling process, like literally physically being able to write in the book in an ongoing way, because I'm going to be in a new journal pretty much immediately. Spoilers, I've already started the next one because, this one's done. So that's not too much of a problem. But I probably personally wouldn't stick heaps of fabric early on in a journal, because just for that reason, it just does get a little bit trickier to write when it's too fat. So those little illustrations that I did of how the journal's going to look and the types of blocks that it's going to be composed of, I found a little, another glassine envelope. Is it glassine? I don't know. It's kind of semi-transparent. And I'm just going to glue that one in. And those bits of paper are going to just fit in that little envelope, and that's all good. And I like that you can see the pattern through the envelope, so you know what's in there, and you are sort of encouraged to pull it out. I did end up putting a tiny paper clip on those little pieces, just to help them. So it's easier to pull them out of the pocket when you want to do that, because you can pull them all out together. Just going to glue those little patterns in there, little sketches. I drew those with my Prismacolor pencils. I really like them. I'm still kind of getting the hang of them. They're very beautiful and really good quality, but they lay down a lot of pigment, which obviously is what you want. But if you're used to using waxier, more traditional pencils, it can take a bit of getting used to. You kind of have to relearn how much pressure to apply, and also how the pigments will interact with each other, because they blend a lot more and mix a lot more, which is really great, again, if you're using them for fine art and just anything really. It's really great quality for them to have, but it just takes a little bit of getting used to. And yeah, obviously when I'm just doing a rough sketch of a quilt block, that doesn't matter too much, but when I've been using them for illustration, I've had some really interesting results that very clearly show that I haven't got the knack of it just yet. Yeah, that's good. It's part of the process. I love learning the qualities and characteristics of the different media that I like using. It's really fun. And I've been a fair bit more experimental with that kind of stuff lately too. I'm working with watercolour, and I'm also learning about gouache and a whole bunch of different things that I've been able to make time for in the last little while, and it's feeling really good, so that's fun. So you can see I've just added a little, basically it's kind of like a little title for the page. Not that I do titles on these pages really, but I just put the hashtag on there because the paper that I had been doing the little sketches on, it had that little, what is it called? A little section in there that said project on it, and that just seemed really appropriate for this little page. So I just wrote the hashtag there, and I have stuck it in with a bit of washi tape. And now I'm just doing a little bit of journaling. So I've just got my regular gel pen here. It's one of the Muji ones. I know there are strong opinions on both sides of the is Muji the best pen ever debate, which is kind of hilarious given that it's one of those things that's very subjective and a matter of opinion. As a left-handed person, I do have like certain requirements of my pens because they can... we smudge our writing a lot more easily, so we need them to dry quickly, and certain nibs don't work as well for me, I guess, with the angle and the pressure that I use. So Muji is one of my favourite pens to use, but in this journal I mix my pens up. Sometimes I use this, sometimes I use fountain pens with different coloured inks, sometimes I use like Sakura Micron fine liner type pens because I'll have been using them for an illustration and I'll have it in my hand and I'll just keep journaling with it. Like it's very much it's pretty ad hoc, and I like that about it. You can see here that I'm just adding in another little piece of fabric. This is a white on white fabric, and I'm going to be using that for between each of the blocks. So each one's going to be surrounded by a row of white, and I think that's going to help the colours stand out even more and again lighten the whole thing up, which I'm looking forward to seeing, because it's one of those things that sounds good in theory, but you never really know until you see it all cut out and sewn together. So I'm hoping it works out well. So yeah, I've just put a little bit of the fabric that I'm planning on using for that in here too, just a little swatch. The way that I stuck these shapes in means that I've got these odd little bits of space. They're sort of triangular and a bit weird. And so I wasn't 100% sure how to write in them, but when I do little sketches and things like that, I often like to annotate them. So I thought what I would do is just get a grey pen rather than the black, so you can tell that it's different from the main body of the journaling, and just include some annotations, so just some little notes on the fabrics and just bits and pieces about the project. And I thought that would help make the whole thing feel complete. So this is just a little example of what ends up in this journal. I am looking forward to sharing more pages from it with you, and for you being able to see over time how different each one is. I don't have a particular aesthetic or style that I apply to this apart from stick in all the things and write about them and make it colourful and fun. And that's what makes these some of my favourite sort of journals, memory keeping objects, items ever. I just really like them. And I hope you do too. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye!